Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Trahern Crews show. Our YouTube audience just joined us. We're excited just to honor Black men. So I'm gonna just read a quick article why we need to. Well, we know what Black men have went through in America for 400 years, and what we're still going through. So this is just a quick piece. When Cephas Williams, a London-based artist, visited the House of Lords, he went through all the usual security procedures and was asked to take a seat. Williams, a Black man, was then approached by a white woman who asked him why he was sitting there. She asked him to move, and believing that he was sitting in a restricted area, he agreed. I got up to leave, and she immediately went from 0 to 100, Williams said. She said, "Why are you raising your voice?" She approached the armed security guards, a white man and a Black woman. Williams said he was calm throughout the incident, which took place in 2019. I wanted to report it just what happened, but they said there's no point. So in 2018, Williams created a campaign called 56 Black Men, a series of stark portraits of Black men from all walks of life wearing hoodies to show, in his words, "I am not a stereotype." He said it happens on the streets, in the schools, the workplace, and white tablecloth restaurants, and yes, even in the venerated House of Lords. There are people who see Black men as angry or threatening, he said. And we know that's the case, man. So Black men have to walk around society, know people seeing them as threatening or angry, right? And then some people demonize Black men and use those stereotypes to try to knock black men off their game, especially Black men who are doing great work. So yes, last week we had but we'll jump into that in the next segment. In this segment, we want to honor Brother Gary Dennis Hines from the Sounds of Blackness. This brother has been doing some really great work. We're just going to talk about him real quick. Gary Dennis Hines, excellent, spectacular music producer from here in Minnesota. That's Gary Dennis Hines right there. We're honoring him tonight. One of the brothers that we're honoring. If you can do anything, support the Sounds of Blackness, support their music. Gary Hines is doing great work. They just released a new track called "It's Time for Reparations." You can support that by buying that on Amazon and all streaming platforms. So make sure you support Mr. Hines. Gary D. Hines, music director and producer of a 3-time Grammy Award-winning Sounds of Blackness. Pop, hip-hop, rhythm and blues, jazz, Latin, rock, blues, reggae, ragtime, classical, gospel. Gary has recorded, performed, toured, written for, appeared with Quincy Jones, Jimmy Jam, Terry Lewis, Prince, Usher, Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross, Aretha Franklin, Elton John, Johnny Gill, Patti LaBelle, Dolly Parton, Danny Glover, Jordan Sparks, to name a few. Gary has performed in every major city in the U.S. and abroad, in Africa, England, Holland, Switzerland, France, Germany, Italy, Portugal, Japan, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Bermuda, Jamaica, the Bahamas, with the Sounds of Blackness. Gary has also conducted countless music workshops, seminars, lecture demonstrations, and master classes, which he will be doing with us this Wednesday at the Snelly Cafe, discussing reparations for the American descendants of chattel slavery. So we're honored that he's going to be joining us this Wednesday at the Snelling Cafe, but we just want to honor him anyway because of all these accomplishments that he has. And this is somebody who's in our midst. This is somebody who has overcome white supremacy and institutional racism in the state of Minnesota and in America, and still has went on to do great things and create great music around the world. So we're honoring, taking this minute to honor Gary Hines. Gary has also conducted countless music workshops, seminars, lectures, demonstrations, and master classes across the United States and internationally about the history, impact, and evolution of African American music and culture. Gary has been a recipient of such honors as a Grammy, 3-time International Time for Peace Award, Minnesota Music Academy Awards, Minnesota Music Hall of Fame Award, Distinguished Citizen Award, Golden Scroll for the Promise of Greatness Award, an honorary doctor of humane letters from his alma mater, Macalester College, St. Paul. Sounds of Blackness latest CD. So yeah, is right now it's time for reparations. So we're just honoring Gary Dennis Hines tonight, real quick. And this is the new track from the Sounds of Blackness called It's Time for Reparations, right here on the Trahern Crews Show, 94.1 FM, Frogtown Tuned In Radio. So yeah, we thought it was really important to honor black men, because we know black men are under attack right now. So I want to go back to this article real quick. And the UK Parliament spokesperson told Market Watch, "We are very sorry to hear about the experiences reported by Cephas Williams. Parliament is working hard to improve its processes for reporting and handling bullying and harassment. We know there is still work to be done, and we would encourage anyone who has experienced bullying or harassment in Parliament to report their experience to our independent complaints and grievance scheme." Given such experiences, Williams was not surprised by recent events in the U.S. The country has been rocked and also inspired by protests over the death of George Floyd, who was black, died on May 25th, 2020, after a white Minneapolis policeman kneeled on his neck with the full weight of his body for 9 minutes and 29 seconds. So after So last week on our show, we had Phil and Andrea Robinson, who had a white supremacist run his truck right into their house. Then the following day, Mr. John Thompson, who's been under attack, was having a press conference, man, and because he's under attack. So during his press conference, a suspected white supremacist rode up on the Capitol lawn. She had a Trump flag. She was waving it. And we was like, damn, what's going on here, man? And nobody was really and then it turned into like a high-speed chase. Nothing was really so we just was saying, like, if it was just crazy that all this started with John being pulled over, but this white supremacist drove up on the Capitol lawn and started doing donuts. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Trahern Crews Show on 94.1 FM, Frogtown Tuned In Radio. So we've been tonight's show is about honoring black men. We just honored Gary Dennis Hines, music producer with the Sounds of Blackness. They got a new song out called "It's Time for Reparations." He'll be joining us this Wednesday at the Snelling Cafe, 7 p.m., to talk about reparations and the racial wealth gap and why reparations are so important. So last week we heard from Phil and Andrea Robinson, who had their house was ran into by a white supremacist. And he was not, the family feels like he was not charged correctly. Like there wasn't a hate crime involved. There wasn't a, it just wasn't, it didn't seem like the charges were harsh enough. You know, black people, we get real harsh charges. We get attacked, but this guy actually ran his truck into their house. And I guess there was some charges, but not the charges that Phil wanted to see. Then the following day, there was a press conference for John Thompson. And John Thompson has been facing some attacks by the Democrats and the Republicans. And he's been asked to step down for some things that happened like 10, 12 years ago. But why he was having that press conference, suspected white supremacists drove up on the Capitol lawn and start waving a Trump flag. You guys probably on Facebook, you might can't hear
Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh. When are the police going to do something? Do something. Now she about to smash the car. See? Oh, wow. They killed one hard. Yeah. Where's the police at? He's right there.
So what you're hearing is I'm listening to a clip of, this is during a press conference for John Thompson. John Thompson was pulled over by the police after leaving a vigil for Philando Castile. Now contrast that to this woman. She pulls up on the Capitol lawn and she pulls out a Trump flag and starts driving towards us. And she's waving this flag. And then I don't know where Capitol Police was or whatever, but nothing really happened. She started doing donuts. She drove over the flowers. I think the police did eventually come. When they did come, she started to drive off of she drove off, did a couple donuts, drove over some flowers, then drove off into the street and went on a small high-speed chase. And then she was cornered, and they were sat there and talked to her for like. So yeah, we're sitting here. What we were just listening to was a piece of a clip from the press conference that John Thompson held earlier this week when a suspected white supremacist drove up on the Minnesota Capitol lawn and started driving towards the press conference waving a Trump flag. No one was there to stop her. There was no police. There was no National Guard. There was no fences. There was none of the stuff that they had all set up for us peaceful protesters or what have you. But this suspected white supremacist was able to drive up on the Capitol lawn, wave the Trump flag. I think the police eventually came, but then when they did come, she started doing donuts on the Capitol, drove over the Capitol flowers, on into the street, and then went on a small high-speed chase. And then they sat there and talked to her. She was able to call her doctor. And then they said they took her to the hospital. Now, we know if that was a black woman, actually in D.C., a black woman rode up near the Capitol and she was killed. And she was having a mental health crisis, but she was killed. This was during the Obama presidency. But this woman she was able to call her doctor. She was able to smoke cigarettes. They were just talking to her for a very long time, and we felt like that was a serious attack that she did. But the police treated her very kindly, and we wish that Breonna Taylor could have been treated like that. We wish that Dante Wright could have been treated like that. We wish that George Floyd could have been treated like that. We wish that Jamar Clark could have been treated like that. But they don't treat us like that. They demonize us so that they can kill us socially, politically, and economically. So that's what happened. And this is what.
Don't give her a ticket or something?
Yeah.
So this is her driving